So here's another unknown unit for me. This is a Bowers and Wilkins A7 wireless speaker. And this again, it's not something I would normally deal with, but the owner of this one is quite local, so I agreed to have a wee look at what's going on. There is absolutely no signs of life. It's completely dead, so we're kind of suspecting a power supply problem. And quick Google tells you that this is quite a common thing with these units. They appear to develop this problem where there's just no life at all. Either that or there's a flashing light indicating some other kind of processor problem or whatever. Anyway, let's see if we can take this apart and figure out what's going on. Alright, so we need to get this case apart, and as I understand it, what we have to do is take this rubber surround off, and then there's some catches on either side here that we need to kind of prise open, and then the sort of outer casing should slide off here. So let's see if we can get into this rubber surround here. It seems quite robust. There we go. So this is obviously glued on. It's actually double-sided tape, I think, that's been holding that on. I mean, these things aren't really meant to come apart. They're supposed to be thrown away, I think. Okay, and then I've just cut some plastic shims here, just out of some food packaging, and we'll try and slip this in here. And I think these are maybe not going to be robust enough. I maybe need something a bit stiffer to actually open up the catch there, so I'll go and see what I can find to do that. So these are actually working. What I found is if I prise open or prise the casing away, and then I can get the shim in. Right, so I'm just opening it up slightly, and then I can see the catch, and I just put this shim in to stop it from closing up. Let's try the other side. So that wasn't too bad. So now the next stage is that we have to get some leverage onto the casing here to try and push that back. So we'll put it on its side, and then I'm going to have to get something to lever against that. So let me see what I can figure out for that. So there's a little lip on this outer casing here that we can get a piece of wood against, and then if we hold on to the port here, we can just gently kind of hammer this piece of wood, and that's got some movement. We can see we've got a bit of a gap here now, so hopefully we can prise the thing open. Maybe need a bit more persuasion. At least we're moving. Right, so I'm going to wrestle with that a little bit, and then we'll come back. Alright, so I just did the same thing with a piece of wood, and pushed out a wee bit further. So we're getting there now. We've got a much bigger gap here now to try and ease this off. There we go. Yeah. See the catches there. The shims have done their job now, so and they can go. Still very tight. Let me give it another wee hit. Possibly even lift it up now. There we go. Slide it out, okay. And then we've got these two connectors here. Not entirely sure what these are for, but these unclip, and then that's the front panel off. So that's all good. Right, so there we are, there's our speakers, all in good order. So I think there should be some screws now, should be some screws along here. We'll take them out and see if we can get the thing apart, so I'll go and deal with that. Alright, so I've got all these screws loosened now, and we should be able to separate the front and back. I've been fighting it a little bit, and what I realise is that when we removed that rubber mount there, there's still some adhesive across the joint there, so we need to split that before it's going to come apart. So I'll just run round that with the scalpel there, just to cut that joint. Hopefully now that should, there we go, easy enough. Right then, let's see what we've got inside here. Screws are falling out. This is obviously all the speaker connectors there. Try not to disconnect them initially, because we are really just interested in the power supply section. Alright, let's see what we've got here. This is obviously a power amp section here. There'll be a bunch of Class D amplifiers driving our various loudspeakers. So need to kind of look in here and see where our power supply is coming in, and go from there. I think the power supply board's under the power amp board, so probably this is going to have to come out before we can get access to that. So let me stare at this for a little while, figure out what we're going to do next. Alright, so I've got power applied to the unit, and I can see that the mains input cables run along here and go in here somewhere, and then there's a couple of connectors come up from the power supply onto this processing and amplifier board. So I'm just going to do some random probing there, and we'll see if there's any life in that at all before we take it apart any further. I mean, ideally we'd be looking for 5 volts here somewhere. So there's nothing on that connector at all. Check some of these other ones. Absolutely no life there, which is good, because hopefully then there's nothing actually wrong in this area here. There's nothing wrong in the processing side of things. So we'll just dismantle a bit further, get into the power supply, and see if we can find anything there. So we'll undo the power first. And then I've already taken some of these screws out, so we'll just take some of these board-to-board connectors away, and then the power amp should just flip to the side, giving us access to where we need. Okay, that should be everything disconnected. Then we can lose this lot. Oh, power supply is on the same board. It's a bit of a nuisance. Okay, I thought the module would just come out, but it looks like some of these other screws have to come out as well, so let's do that. Alright, so I've got this unit out and a bunch of screws holding this power supply in, so hopefully this should just come apart now. There we go. Nicely fitted in there, just for, you know, they're obviously paying attention to how this thing is going to sound at the end of the day, so that, you know, there's some details like that. Gasketing's pretty good. But there's our power supply. So let's take a closer look at this. Here's our power supply removed then, and you know, nothing untoward looking on the top side there. So our mains comes in on this connector, and then we go through some filtering. Here's our main reservoirs here, and then obviously our switching transformer here, and we've got some FETs controlling that, and then our output section, bunch of capacitors there there's probably various output levels in this thing. And this here's a fuse, and this fuse is blown, so that you know, it's not blown because the fuse is dead, it's blown because there's something else wrong. And if we turn over here, what we can see is we've got a burnt out resistor there and some other burnt out stuff here. So it may well be terminal for this actual unit here. What I'll do though is I'll remove some of these FETs and we'll measure them off the board and see if they're healthy, or expect this one to be short. You know, this is a current sense resistor through this FET here, so this guy's going to be dead for sure. But these other two, I'm not so sure, and I can't really measure them in the board because they're going to be driving this transformer, which is just a coil. So you know, it's going to read a short circuit regardless whether the FET's okay or not, depending on how they're connected up. So the easiest thing to do is remove them. We'll measure them. But I'm not holding out a lot of hope here. You know, if we discover that one of the FETs is gone, that's fine. I can replace that. But then I don't know what else could be going on here, and so you know, sometimes you have to cut your losses. But anyway, we'll take these out, see what we can find. Alright, so we've removed these transistors. It turns out these two are FETs in these two positions, and then this one here is a triac, which surprised me a little bit. But certainly the FETs are they're both a dead short, and the triac doesn't look to be in good health either when I look at that. And what I did a bit of googling, and what I find is that it seems that this fault's quite common. And the deal with the triac is it's part of a voltage doubler circuit in here, a very crude voltage doubler, and it's only really meant to be active when the unit's plugged into 110 volts. And what seems to happen is when you're plugged into 240 volts, sometimes you might get a dip in the level, and it seems that this circuitry starts to come into play, and we get a gross over voltage, and that's what seems to be killing this circuitry. So it seems then worth trying to replace the FETs, and the advice is leave the triac out of circuit because it doesn't do anything unless you're in a 110 volt system. So we'll replace the FETs, we'll replace the current sense resistor, and then this driver that drives these two FETs, likely that's going to be dead as well. Maybe the first thing we'll do is we'll replace the fuse. Now that these FETs are being removed, we'll replace the fuse and see if we get any life when we power up from there. Alright, so we've removed all these suspect parts here. I've replaced the fuse and we've got mains on the input here. And if I apply power to the unit, what we find is that I do get a low voltage supply there. So there's our 5 volts logic supply. So that's pretty good. And I can also measure supply voltage on the control device of the main switching regulator. There we've got 10.7 volts there. I think I'll have to replace that device though, but at least we've got power supply on it. It's all very stable. So everything we see here gives me some confidence that if we do replace these blown parts, then we should be in good shape. So I'm going to go and order up some parts now. We'll come back and load them and see if we get lucky. This is a few weeks later then, and we got the replacement parts. So I've replaced the two FETs, we've replaced the driver, the half ohm sense resistor, and then there was a 100 ohm series resistor down here that was blown as well. So all that's been done. And initially when I powered it up, I was still getting no life on the main supplies. I was getting the 5 volt I had before. But I chased around for a while and found some other dry capacitors. But the main problem was that because I never had a load on my 5 volts, so, I was just making a crude measurement. Because I never had a load, the under voltage lockout in this driver device here was coming into play, and it just wasn't running. So once I figured that out and we put a load on there, everything gets good. So if we power up now, this is me monitoring. These are the main power amp supplies here into these load resistors. If we power up now, and then I do the enable just by connecting this resistor here, then there we go, got 18, nearly 19 volts. The same's true on the negative rail there as well. There's our minus 18 volts. So these supplies now are running just fine. And that's looking very encouraging for us. Looks like we can then install this back into the unit and see how we go there. Here's our main unit again then, and you can see here where this is the scorch mark where the resistor's blown. And of course the thing is, we're going to install this now. We don't yet know if the failure of the power supply has caused some other damage in this board. We're just kind of crossing our fingers at this stage, hoping that there's nothing else wrong. I've looked at the board, I can't see anything, but we don't know. Only thing we can do is install it, power it up and see where we go. Alright, we can start to install the whole module into the main unit here now, and then there's a whole bunch of connectors to be put back in place. So I'll just work through that. We'll come back once all this is connected and see what happens when we put power on then. So that's all our various connectors back in place, everything's all screwed in now. So we'll attempt to put the main loudspeaker part back in. You can see there's a gasket goes all the way around here, which we need to get right. That wasn't so bad, so that looks okay. Right, so I'm not going to fully assemble it. We'll put the outer casing on partially, just enough to get the connectors joined up, and we'll see how it behaves once we put power on it then. Here's the unit with the covers on then, and I've done some testing with the covers partially on before I put them on completely. But if we power up now, from the mains, they're powered up, and what we see is we get a red light here that flashes, it just kind of pulses on and off. And first impressions are that's not a good sign, but in actual fact what's happening here is the unit's booting up. There's obviously a bunch of processing going on here, and that has to kind of boot up in the same way as a PC does. So that it goes through that for some seconds, and then we should get a different colour light. Right, so now it's moved on to a flashing yellow light, which means it's looking for the wireless network. And I've not bothered to set that up, but it seems that if you cycle through the inputs, I can feed an input from my PC just via USB. So a quick flick of the switch there, and we've now got a steady green light. So that's all looking good. And let's play some music now.
So I'll see